Hi, welcome back to the Ed Solly Show. I've got two very special guests with me today. We've got YG, the bodyguard of Georgia Nyghtstorm, and Mallory, MAGA Mom Staples, both running for U.S. Congress, YG in District 7 and Mallory in District 6. Both in the heat of their campaign. We're going to talk to them a little bit about some of the things they've got going on, some of the things that separates them from the crowd, and some of the things they want to accomplish when they get to the federal government up in Washington, D.C., and how they're going to try and avoid becoming part of the swamp and help fix the swamp. So we'll lead off. We'll bring in Mallory first. I want to know, MAGA Mom, that is a great slogan. That's
awesome.
Original. Awesome.
That's original.
That is, and we were just talking about, I can't believe 6 years in, no one's had that idea. That's so awesome.
I know.
It's you, and I think it's a home run, honestly.
Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
when I first saw your video, and then it gets the MAGA Mom scribbled on, all of it. The presentation was fantastic. So tell me how you came up with that and what that means as a MAGA Mom.
Oh my gosh. Well, my consultant actually came up with it because he felt like I embodied that. I mean, I've always long said the best thing about me, and I know you feel this way as a daddy, but the best thing about me is that I'm a mom. That's the thing I'm most proud of. That's the most defining role I've ever had, the most powerful role I'll ever have. So it just makes sense to highlight that. And it's really out of my love for my kids and the need to protect them that I said yes to this thing that God's called me to. This whole race is his idea. I'm a Christian. When he says do something, I say, point me in the right direction, Daddy, let's go. And so it just was neat and really sweet of the Lord to make it what I'm most passionate about, which is my kids. And so it's all about the children for me. And in my house, and then largely on a national level, everything that's happening right now that is a crisis is in some way an attack on our kids. And so it's very important. And the MAGA Mom thing, I think they nailed it, and if the shoe fits, wear it. So I love it. Yeah.
Well, I think we're seeing this pull from parents that are getting in these races, myself included. I'm not highlighting any business experience or who I know or this endorsement or any of those. It's, look, I'm a dad. And I'm tired of people not caring about my kids.
That's right.
And I'm going to do the things that's right for my kids, and it's going to benefit all kids at the same time.
That's right.
And that's something that I think has taken the country by storm. I mean, we saw it in Virginia. Obviously, Virginia, 12 points blue to 8-point red state in a year.
Flipped it.
That's insane. YG, you the same way. You talk about kids a lot. So one of the things a lot of people don't know, YG and I were two of the first dads to speak at the Forsyth County School Board when all of these things heated up.
That's right.
I'm not surprised.
My speech, not so great.
Come on.
We didn't plan. I wrote like a 15-minute diatribe with arm flailing and everything practiced in because I was super nervous. And then they told us when we got there, you have 3 minutes.
You have 3 minutes.
So I'm trying to scribble out, and it's a minute before I go to speak. So I'm trying to scribble things out. And I don't think it made any sense. Yes. But YG did a fantastic job. And he has this great personal story that he was able to tell.
He always does.
He does. And it's good. It's something that connects a lot with this critical race theory that we're seeing. So tell me about that, YG, and your connection, how you're viewing this critical race theory.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. And one thing I will say, MAGA Mom is an original concept. I mean, and you embodied it so good. And as far as you did better than you think you did. I mean, honestly, I was watching. I'm like, yeah, look at it, look at him, he tearing it up there. You couldn't tell that you had to tone all that down from 15 minutes to about a minute and a half, really.
Yeah.
So you did a great job. But honestly, when we're talking about being a parent, there are things that's going on in the country that upsets parents, that upsets moms and dads, and things that, when you send your kid to school, I mean, especially when we was young, you can send your kid to school and, you have a partnership with parents and the school board and the teachers, and everybody was on the same page. They wanted to make sure that the children were able to get the quality education they needed, especially out where I am in Gwinnett County, get that education and be able to go out and adequately, connect with others and go after that American dream. That is what the education system was about. Now, what has happened is it done went woke. Okay, and in a lot of corporate culture, they say go woke, go broke. It has broken our school system. It has broken the connection. It has broken the partnership with parents and the school boards to now you got school boards pretty much calling parents domestic terrorists, pretty much teaming out with the Department of Defense and Justice saying that, hey, we have to go after parents, arresting parents at school board meetings over not having a diaper on the face. I mean, I'm just saying we have lost that. So when I decided to get into the race,
I saw that in Gwinnett.
I was there.
That's a true story.
Yeah, it's a true story. I saw
data point.
It went down in Gwinnett, and I saw it. I de-escalated the issue. And then, of course, the media did the normal thing of excoriating these two women. So I decided to put them on my platform and give them an hour special to tell their story and to tell the truth. But their story is our story.
Right.
Okay, they match up with us because we have been demonized. Moms and dads have been demonized by the educational system as outsiders, as interlopers, as invaders, as terrorists. Now, how can you build a quality partnership when you are demonizing the very people who are bringing your product to school?
Right.
We, the kids, are the product. And we have to work together to get it. And let's just say it's enough pissed off MAGA moms and enough pissed off daddy bodyguards to say hell no to this, and we standing up for it. That's it.
I love that you brought up when we were younger, as you were saying that. Back when we grew up, and I think you're a little bit younger than we are, which is fine. It's fine.
I'm 63.
Well, I'm the only one with no hair. Y'all still got hair, so come on now.
I mean, thank goodness. Can you imagine? But when our generation was younger, the parent was the customer. Like the school was responsible to the customer, and the parents were heard. They were involved. They asked permission. Like I shared that story the other night when we were with the Paul Revere group, where they asked my mom's permission to send me to Fernbank Science Center to teach me sex. They didn't just say, hey, you know, like they said in Virginia, the quiet thing out loud, parents don't get to have a say.
Yeah.
And what we do, they knew the parents were the say. And so they asked permission. And my mom was like, no, I really don't want some people I've never met before teaching you about the birds and the bees, sex education. I'll do that.
Right.
But because the parent was the customer. And now it's like, not only is the parent not the customer, the parent is the enemy. The parent is the problem. And I think it's that fundamental like shift that we've seen towards Marxism on the path to communism, where you have to break down the family. You have to discredit the parents. You have to distance children from their parents. You have to break down truly the foundation and the structure of our culture, which is parent here, school, government here. There's a shift to switch that. And we're in the middle of that. We're all living in that, which is why you guys were standing up at that school board meeting fighting. You were up against something, you know, much bigger than the people that are just holding those positions. You were up against a paradigm shift. You're up against a cultural change and a reforming of our country. And that's what these parents all over the country have finally figured out. I think largely by being home with their kids and seeing what they were being taught and hearing what they were being taught and indoctrinated with. Let me just use a different word, indoctrinated with. And they thought, this is what's going on? Right. This is what you normally hear when I send you to school. This is what they're saying about your parents. This is what they're speaking into you about your identity. And it's lies. I mean, truly. And so the parents have risen up. And I don't think, like I always say, that's a bear that they've poked that I don't think ever goes back to sleep.
No, well, and we talk about it here in Forsyth, where we believe to be fortunate enough to have 5 Republicans on the board, 5 of 5 Republicans. And we thought when we moved here, well, that's all you need. I got 5 Republicans. I don't have to worry about that. And the reality is 5 Republicans does not always get you 5 conservatives. That's right. And then on top of that, they're so inundated. It's basically a volunteer job on the school board. And they're just inundated with so many budget approvals and other approvals that all their time, I mean, it's this great shell game that the school system has set up. And then when we bring them things, they're like, nah, this isn't here. I'm like, this is from my daughter's, this is what she learned today. Yeah. This is absolutely here in Forsyth. Yeah. And they're like, no, and then they dig into it and find, of course, yes, it is. But then they don't even know how to handle it.
Well, and it's not only what they are learning every day, it's what they aren't learning every day. It was like, we were just talking about this tweet that Dave Ramsey put out, that it was like, if you save $100 a month for 25 years, it's like 1.1. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is the kind of stuff we are teaching our kids, social emotional learning. They're spending all this time during the week learning all this stuff about, 157 genders that you can choose to be, and are you identifying as a cat or a butterfly today or whatever the
Sure.
heck is going on, and they're not learning how to be fiscally responsible, which is going to make them successful in life. So it's such a downgrade. We're creating, the education system is creating mass numbers of government dependence, which is exactly what the left wants. They don't want you independent. They don't want you successful and functioning. They want you to be needful of the federal government. And the federal government really has no business educating our children. The federalization of education needs to be completely rolled back. Like, that should be something that happens on the state levels. Everything the federal government touches, almost, well, at this point, they've actually gone after the military. The military used to be the exception of that, because it was like the military and the Postal Service, and we know about the Postal Service. But anyway, we spend billions and billions of dollars a year since the conception of the Department of Education, and we have not had 1 year, I just learned this the other day, we have not had 1 year where there was even a stagnation, much less a decline in our scoring in the United States. And the first year of COVID, they spent $200 billion a year on education in this country. It's normally $80 billion. The schools haven't even been able to spend that money yet. They haven't even been able to spend it. So it's sitting there for teachers unions to pick up and stuff. They've spent $10 billion of that. It's absolutely unbelievable. So it's a train wreck on every level, because they're not teaching these kids life skills. They're not teaching them how to run a household, run a budget, get a job, all these life skills. They're not learning that. They're sitting in the room doing touchy-feely emotional stuff that is actually an assault on their true identity, their God-given identities. It runs in complete contradiction to that to begin with. So it's not even helpful, but they're not learning basic life skills. And we are sitting in a culture where we're bearing the fruit of that.
And I got to jump in on this one, because basically, especially in Gwinnett County, okay, because it's a little bit different in Gwinnett County than in Forsyth County. And you talked about critical race theory,
right,
and the indoctrination and the splitting and the division of our children in that, it is very dangerous, because instead of teaching those skills of compound interest, okay, that you was talking about, instead of teaching those skills of connectivity, so where these children are able to graduate, they have the life skills and the social skills to be able to reach out to folks, maybe with different backgrounds or different differences, period, but able to learn how to make money with people and create a lifestyle. But getting even deeper, when we talk about the separation of the family and removing the family, especially in a majority minority district like Gwinnett County, and especially coming from a minority community like the Black community or the Hispanic community, but especially the Black community, because our brother is Black. We talk.
I'd noticed
yeah,
that.
I mean, for real, I know, right? But we're talking about a systemic thing that has happened since the so-called Great Society, and we're talking about the socialism and the Marxism of the separation of removing the father to weaken the Black family. Right. And these things, and people wonder why the Black community has not moved beyond between 12 to 14% in the population growth in the last 60 years. I wonder why. Right. Because when you remove the father, when you systematically destroy the nucleus of a family and separate them to where the mothers are always basically dependent on welfare, the average, in most cases, in some cases, Black women have a net worth of $5.50 in the bank, with a deficit of in debt of over $20,000 in student debt, and have at least 3 or 4 kids, and none of them have fathers. This destroys the financial credibility of our families. Now imagine this being propagated for generation after generation after generation. This is the reality where the rubber hit the road. This is the compounding, decreasing interest. So
that should be Planned Parenthood's real score.
It should be, but when they're killing us, to almost, I mean, we got a deficit of Black death of over 20 million who've been aborted by Planned Parenthood, which is 40% of the current Black population that's alive right now. So almost half of our community has never seen the light of day, and we wonder why we can't move forward. So instead of pushing critical race theory and saying that all white people are evil and racist and oppressors, actually, let's talk about how Planned Parenthood has oppressed the lives of Black people since Margaret Sanger, but nobody wants to talk about that, but that is the reality. Critical race theory can go to hell. That's where it belongs. White people, Black people, white supremacy is wrong, Black supremacy is wrong, racism is wrong, but it's a beautiful thing when our children can come together, learn together, grow together, and be successful together. Now let's save our babies, stop killing our kids, and stop teaching this foolishness.
Well, and what's real funny is everything's so wrong with America that we have to fix its racist roots.
Yeah.
And we've got a flood of non-white immigrants coming over the border, just trying to be a part of this country.
Wait a minute, hold on. The media don't talk about that
I know,
anymore.
right?
I mean,
I
it's
know.
just like that issue just disappeared for some reason.
Exactly. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because Mallory, you went to the border.
Yes, I did.
You
And YG went last year, and I went real recently.
Okay.
Yeah, we've both been down there. And, it is just the prime example. Like, I wish every American citizen could recognize this for what it is. It is this administration's hatred for the American people on display. We have tax-paying citizens that are getting hammered in the grocery store with inflation. They're getting hammered at the gas pumps. They're getting hammered in their 401ks, being devalued with all this, struggling, trying to get up under the mandates off their back, and suffocating small businesses and all this stuff. And then our border is the Disneyland of the cartels. Like, they are making so much money. Business has never been better for them. They don't obey the law. They're not citizens. They don't have a legal right to be here. And their business is thriving. And there's that. There's the fiscal implications. There's election integrity implications. There is a humanitarian crisis going on like I have never seen in my life. It is it will make you nauseous. It'll make you sick. Right. And the cartels, all this is going on under the knowing and watchful eye of this administration, whoever's running it, because we know it's not Joe Biden. I mean, that's my question every day. Good morning. Who's running the country?
Yeah, Biden.
Crickets. Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody even knows who's calling all these shots, because he can't get down the stairs without Jill. So that's a horror in itself.
Or up the stairs.
Or up the stairs. Up or down. Up or down.
He doesn't even know he's on the stairs.
Yeah,
right.
And all this is going on. And they literally, if you ever doubted their hatred, just look at what they're doing. Look at what they're paying for. Look at what they're using our tax dollars to do. I mean, I had this incredible experience down at the border, saw more than I could fill a book with it, and went out all night, the last night there, to really see what was going on, because there's a lot of activity during the day. The place comes alive at night as far as criminal activity. And so I'd done that. I got on the plane early in the morning to fly home, and was checking in security behind 5 illegals. And I recognized the recyclable bags they gave them, because I'd seen it, the night before, or hours before really. And they just had pieces of paper. I had to have my driver's license. I pay taxes. I was born here. I'm a U.S. citizen. And I'm all for merit-based legal immigration. I mean, this country is built on the backs of immigrants coming here. So this is not it. This is about law and order. This is about the rule of law. So these people broke into our country, and they are literally going through security with a piece of paper ahead of me. And they got on my flight, 5 of them. And I'm like, well, that's just the best. I bought my ticket and yours. I mean, this is all, and they had their cell phones, they had their debit cards, they had their cash, they had, when they come in, they receive food and medical services, and then they're just being sent out. They pick their city, they're being flown wherever they want to go to integrate into our culture and vote. Because our election integrity process is already compromised. I mean, calling it fragile is like a compliment. And then now last year alone, we brought 2 million under this administration. Illegals broke into our country successfully. And illegals are counted in the census. So that allows the Democrats to pick up seats in the House, which affects our federal laws. Every citizen, they are given a pathway to citizenship, which means they can straight up vote. And that's what's happening anywhere they want to go. I mean, anywhere they want to go. And then the burden on the taxpayer for medical, the burden on the taxpayer for education.
Well, and that's the part that people don't, go back to your point, we're a country of immigrants.
Yeah.
But we're a country of immigrants pre-welfare state.
Yes, that's right.
When you created the welfare state, you can no longer take everyone's tired, weak, and hungry.
That's right. You can't.
Changed it because
our people are
else
tired,
paid the
weak,
bill.
and hungry.
Wait a minute, hold on. Because see, and you said it, you brought up a good point, and now you ask, where do these people go? Let me tell you where they go. And especially in the district that I am, which is heavily Democrat, who voted for Joe Biden, who are also starting to have buyer's remorse on Joe Biden when I'm talking about Black and brown communities, because everybody knows I love being an American, period. But since the Democrats always want to sit here and virtue signal about Black people, these immigrants, illegal immigrants, are dumped into Black communities. Okay, they soak up the resources in black and brown communities, communities that are already struggling, communities that are already hurting, whose the school system is already bad, the food system is already bad, low jobs, not much of anything. And now folks who are literally struggling, real American citizens who are trying their best to take care of their kids in horrible situations, now we get busloads and busloads of illegal immigrants coming and taking the resources. See, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about this, but this is when it's real. When you are a black mom and a dad, and you're struggling to try to pay your bills and send your kid to school, and now you have an influx of illegal immigrants coming in, the little bit of benefits that you were getting, now they've been cut in half or gone, and then you have the school say, well, we have to make sure but what about the American citizens that are here? Right. What about the people that were born here, the people that have been struggling right here in these communities that the Democrats have completely forgotten about? They don't take them out to the suburbs. They bring them into the communities that are hurting the communities. And this is why specifically when I go into Democrat areas, because in District 7, I don't really focus on the conservative areas. We good out there. But you have to go into these communities and talk to the people who are doing the real suffering. And they say, YG, we are sick of this. We hate the fact that we voted for Joe Biden. The fact that if we didn't vote for Joe Biden, he feels that he can devalue our blackness by saying we're not black because we didn't vote for him. Then he set up the 1994 crime bill and put our black men in jail. Then he partnered with Planned Parenthood to kill our kids. And now he bringing illegal immigrants into our communities to further distress us financially. This is bull squeeze, YG. Right. We need a difference. So that is the reality of what is going on. Folks can sit here and talk about it all day long, but when you are living in these communities and you are literally seeing your benefits going and you are struggling like hell because of the inflation, because of the supply chain issues, you can't pay for gas, you're struggling to get to work, and maybe the only meal your kid gonna eat is at school because you stopped eating. You say, I ain't gonna eat for 3 days because I wanna make sure my kid eat. Now, illegal immigrants are taking the benefits. This is the reality of what's going on. And the mainstream media don't even like to talk about it.
No. Well, and people who've come to this country legally, immigrants, like the polling shows that over 70% of Latin American citizens are not for what's going on. They want a wall. They want a wall on the border. Right. Over 80% of the black they want a wall at the border. I mean, this is this is the will of the people. National security is the will of the people. And our leaders are supposed to serve at the will of the people. And this is what people want. And they're literally like, shut up. I don't care what you have to say. We're going to do what we want. So they can't play the race card. They can't, separate everybody out and say this is a, conservative. This is it was almost 70% of Biden voters felt like the border wasn't secure and needed, who previously voted for him. Like this is what the people want. And the people are being completely ignored. And then they're being sent the bill for it. Yeah, like it's insult on top of insult on top of insult.
Well, and it's crazy. The taxes now don't even come close to covering all of our expenses that we're spending.
No.
And if you're just going to print more money, why tax anybody?
Well, and we'll never see Social Security.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
We'll never see it. We'll never see it.
Yeah.
We're done.
But if you can just print all the money and it doesn't matter, why even tax me?
Yeah,
doesn't just print it, pay for it, and we'll just wait till it collapses. That's the direction we're heading.
It is the direction we're heading.
It just doesn't make any sense, and it's all these problems that we self-created. Yeah. We let the pharmaceutical companies run crazy with subsidies and special laws and
big tech silence the stories and not educate the community.
We created this opioid crisis, which created a border crisis, which is creating a media crisis because we've got to now cover up the border crisis to protect the opioid crisis. Yeah. And all it is just hardworking moms and dads just want their kids to have a good education and have a safe place to lay their head at night.
Well, it's like
we have lost that.
Yeah, and I agree with all that 100% because, like I said, when I'm going into the communities, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of politicians who want to do this to actually go and talk to people. Sometimes you got to stop chasing after these donors and actually go and talk to people. And what Americans are saying, black, white, Jew, Gentile, and all of these communities are saying, you know, YG, we just want those things. We want to have a safe neighborhood. Who the hell is talking about abolish the police? Who the hell is talking about we don't want to take away the police? No, because that's destroying the communities. The best way to revive these communities is to have a partnership, one, with the police department, which creates a safer neighborhood. Now, when you have a safer neighborhood, now you create more incentive for investment. Okay, more investors are coming to the neighborhood in the form of opportunity zones. Now, when you start building these businesses up, which are the foundations of the community, now there's an increase in income. There's an increase in jobs, and there's an increase in money. When you have those three things, now you have an increase of quality of schools. And then when you have an increase of quality of schools, now all the properties in that area, guess what? It goes up. Instead of going down, it goes up. This is how you build a community. But when you go into these Democrat areas, especially in heavily blue Democrat areas that have suffered for so many years, we're not just talking about black and brown. We're talking about working class white people, working class Hispanics, working class Asian people who have suffered. They say, we want it to stop.
Right.
And when Americans have had enough, and that's why you're seeing that wave of saying, hey, we've had enough, because guess what? The most people I talk to are Democrats. And they are saying, we've had enough of this. We want freedom. We want freedom from mandates. We're getting sick and tired of being kicked out of freaking restaurants, man. I had 5 people tell me they got kicked off their job because they wouldn't get jabbed. These are black and brown people and working class white people. And they say, how are we supposed to take care of our family by putting in an experimental drug, which we don't even know the longevity of what's going to happen in 5 years. We have no clue. And then if something happens to my family member, we can't even sue the government to make sure we'll be okay. These are the real problems. And guess what? It's not a separation of Democrat and Republican anymore. This is a separation of right and wrong.
You're right. And
people are coming. And that's why you're seeing it, man.
I love what YG does, because it takes that the left has just stolen the truth from the right and sold it, and it's a lie. And YG takes that narrative going into these Democratic areas, which most Republicans, like you're saying, are like, oh, those are blue voters. We don't even need to go there. And he just takes that narrative and he just like snaps it and like drops it on the ground. I was like, okay, here's the truth. So he's like, what you're doing is what's happening all over the country. And you know, you made the point, Ed, you were like, big pharma, big tech, big everything. That's the problem. And the solution is small people, one at a time, grassroots, like what's happening right here. That is the solution.
Right.
Is the people. The people are always the solution.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I love targeting those forgotten areas and breathing life into them. Because really what you're doing is you're speaking identity. You're saying you're powerful. This is not your, inroad. There's more. And you can think bigger, and you can live bigger, and you can fight, and you can stand up and all that. And I think that is truly the American spirit.
Well, I appreciate that, because see, when I walk in there, I'm not coming in as, oh, he's YG Nyghtstorm, this. I'm like, nah, bro, I'm from the streets. Okay, I was literally living on the streets. I was homeless in 1992, beat up, robbed, urinated on, took my socks and shoes were taken. I was lowered and low, sleeping in dumpsters, hiding from gangs who was killing homeless people just to get into the gangs, okay? I know what it is to be broke. I know what it is to not have anything. I'm a proud father of 7 children, but 3 of my children are dead and in heaven. I know what it's like to see my child in a casket. I know what it is, the pain of the community. I'm not coming to y'all from some freaking golf club. I'm coming to you from reality. So when I start hitting back at these Democrats when they are selling them a bill of goods, I'm like, let me tell y'all something, man. These are the same people who've been in command of this community for the last 40 years. Now, how long has the community been jacked up? Well, it's been jacked up for about 40 years, YG. Exactly. These same people keep coming in. I said, you need to switch management companies, because the management company called the Democrat Party has destroyed these communities. And guess what? They are the only ones who have enriched themselves. And every 4 years, they take your investment, your dollars, and your votes, and they enrich themselves by getting TV contracts and going to DC and doing numbers, squandering your money. Meanwhile, what paybacks do you have? What growth do you have? What kind of investment growth do you have?
And the concept is simple. I don't remember who said it, but it's Democrats need the poor person's vote.
They need it.
Republicans want middle class and up vote. So if that's the truth, and you can argue one way or the other, but if that's what people generally believe, Democrats are going to write laws that keep people poor.
That's right.
Because that's who votes for them. and Republicans are going to write laws who make people wealthier because that's who they want to vote for.
But the flip
if
side of
that's
that,
what you believe, then everyone should be voting for Republican to help pull themselves up. Because every time you put a Democrat in office, the law they're going to pass is going to hold you down.
The flip side of that is folks are tired of being broke, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're looking at these policies and saying, okay, if this is what's been keeping me down, and I told you, I break it down to them Barney style. I say, hey, we got to look at this like a business, right? I say, okay, if you've been trying to work your behind off for so many years and you have a certain, let's say, property management company or an investment management company, and the only growth you've seen is them, and you have put everything in it, and you have not moved the needle, but yet you're continually going deeper and deeper into debt. Your neighborhoods is continuing to get bad. Then something is wrong. It's time to change the management company. It's time to fire that company.
Right.
Because how about this? Instead of having policies like that, how about we initiate policies where you can actually have some growth financially, emotionally, spiritually, and also being able to fix the infrastructure. These are conservative ideas.
Right.
And if
Trump's
you really
platinum plan.
honestly want to go growth with that
Yes.
platinum plan, okay, if you really want growth and independence, this is where the freedom is. Independence is freedom, because when you are trapped under these policies and it's generation after generation, you, mama, grandmama, great grandmama, granddaddy, uncle, aunts, everybody been trapped under this, everybody been oppressed under this. Guess what? It's time to go. And when you get that first glimpse of freedom, when you start seeing that investment starting to build, now you get it. And everybody, like I say, whole church full of Democrats were like, amen, it's time to go.
I'm going to give you the last word, Mallory, on this one before we switch
I
topics.
think that's why the left got so frothy with Donald Trump, because the conservative policies are the best thing for every demographic, every person, because as long as you're willing to work hard, you can achieve. That's what America's all about. And I tell people to go back and watch his last State of the Union prior to the election, where he went through and listed off every single possible socioeconomic group and how they had come up. And then all the numbers, all the negative had come down, whether it was inflation or job, because he was,
all boats.
That's right. He was good for the country. He was good for Americans, period. There was no caveat. There was nothing else there. It was just, he was good. And they did not know how to fight that, because it's the truth. So they just had to try and shut him down, cancel him, deplatform him. If he sneezed, it was like, oh my gosh, he sneezed. We're going after him, or whatever it was.
Well, they shut the entire country down just to stop him.
They did, and he was deregulating. For every 2 new regulations, they sunset 4 or 5. He was getting off of the back. He was forcing the federal government off the backs of the people. He was literally pulling it back, which is like when I talk, I say, we get a lot of state level questions. I know YG does too, and so for me, I'm like, I would wield my influence to affect state level politics, but really as the next congresswoman for District 6 in Georgia, my job is to firewall between the state and the federal government. My job is to hold that like monster back and try and put that genie back in the bottle, The federal government employs 1/3 of the citizens of the United States of America. They are one of the largest employers on planet Earth. That is a horror.
Yeah.
I quote all the time Reagan. He said this, the most terrifying sentence in the English language is, I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
No.
In my DNA is like, no, we don't need you. No, we don't need you.
Right.
Build the military, keep us safe, and we will handle literally everything else. And when you look at those numbers, like those employment numbers, you can see how far we've gotten in the other direction, which is heading fast and furiously towards communism. I mean, that's what that is. The state is the employer. The state is the parent. If you want to break it down philosophically, the state is the God. There is no more religion. I mean, you're seeing this attack on Christianity. It just doesn't take much to figure out what's going on. And the solution is always going to be the people, which is why it's so fun to sit with just grassroots people running. I mean, I think everyone's gotten the memo that politicians that just sit up there and were born for that, and that's what they wanted to do, and that's their job, and they want term after term after term. And if we had term limits, we wouldn't be having this conversation, we wouldn't be in this place. Nobody wants politicians anymore, because there's such a level of distrust. It is rightly merited, and the people are fed up.
Right.
Yeah.
The veil's been pulled back. It's like the whole Oz thing at the end, and it's like, oh my gosh, you tiny group of sinister people that hate us are calling all the shots, you're out. Right. You're out. And I think the elections in 2022 are going to be a big you're out.
Yeah. Well, I would even go further than just the term limits, because term limits is we've heard it for so long, and people, there's so many people. I'm for term limits, and then as soon as they get there,
which ones? Yeah,
they forget.
100%. Because then it applies to them.
Yeah, they completely
instead of everybody
forget.
else. Yeah,
I would love to see the incumbent tag taken off of the ballot, because you see it so often. These bad politicians, bad actors will be in office, but nobody can run against them because that incumbent tag is so valuable. They should have to line item that in their campaign.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you this.
I'm gonna tell you
this. It is a whole lot of things changing though, because a lot of these politicians who have been in power for so long, and like I said, I'm just straight up real with people. And when I'm talking to folks, this is what. Yeah, for real, man. This is it, man. This is where the rubber hits the road. When you're talking to the folks and they're saying, look, we are tired. And when I say Democrats and Republicans, the grassroots, they are sick and tired. They are done with this. Now, I know there's some establishment folks on both sides who say, the people are stupid, because like I said, I worked in D.C. I listen to them. I see how they dog out people and put people down and dog out their constituency. They do not have any respect for the people because they've been able to do this for so long and on and on. But in 2022, things are changing. And they're starting to see that change. It started in Virginia, then with Durr up there in New Jersey. I mean, $174, and he won. $174. Okay, this is what we're talking about. This is
I don't
the
know
real
your bank
thing.
account, but that's going to be your story. You may have more than $174.
I got a little bit more than that, but I'm just saying this is what the people are saying, and the people are done, and the people want to see not politicians but public servants go in and be ready to do the job. And I would say, let's go do that instead of worrying about how we gonna line our bank accounts and make some deals with the other side to keep our power. Get these people the hell up out of here, man.
Well, like truckers in Canada, the change they've made and the news they've gotten and the coverage, and those are just truckers just wanting to live their lives and have the government left out. And one of the things, we'll switch topics real quick. So I'm obviously running in the state and you guys are federal, and a big thing for me is school choice. I want to see government influence children less.
Correct.
I want the parents to have that influence. I think parents are in a better suited position. To your point, the sexual education, when you start typecasting everyone, 7th grade may not be the year that everyone needs to learn that. Right. And they may not teach it correctly at all. Everyone's a little different. And when you start just giving this blanket platform to these schools, it's gotten a little scary. So I want to keep the state out of the school system as much as possible with school choice. How do we do that with the federal? Because about half the funding for the state for schools comes federal, and I won't have any control over that. If I get into under the gold dome, I can only control what the state does. Yeah. So what do we do with
and the Department of Education,
over
90% of what the Department of Education does is actually school loans. They're the largest loan distributor in the country. Most people don't know that. So very little of what they do actually applies to education, other than collect a ton of tax money and send it back and forth. So the Department of Education needs to be on a pathway to extinction. What needs to happen. And that money needs to be left in the hands of the taxpayer, whatever state they live in. Imagine how much your federal taxes would go down if you weren't funding education. Right. So it's like, just stop that whole loop. Just stop that. And so, for me, my goal is to delightfully and feverishly take a red pen and start cutting through. Somebody asked me the other day, they were like, how would you cut the federal budget? I was like, with my red pen? I don't understand. Like, this is not, it's the same way I cut the budget in my house. It's like, okay. And there's enough fat in every government program to just start.
You mean a 900-page bill has some extra things?
It has a lot of pork in it. I call it barbecue. Because all the barbecue, and I agree with that. And also, just even coming down on a state level, when we're talking about parental authority and school choice, there is a lot of money, especially in Gwinnett County. Because we're the biggest county out here, as far as education-wise. This money needs to follow the kids. Okay, because see, now, I mean, and I agree with a lot of the stuff that you're saying, a lot of things that Mallory says, but when we talk about parental authority and honest, truly school choice, what pisses a lot of people off is that Democrats and Republicans have been in command this entire time, and school choice still has not been addressed.
Right.
Okay, let's just be real with it. Like I said, I'm real with it. I just cut away the fat and let's talk about it.
Republicans have had a supermajority
The
for 10 years.
supermajority, and didn't do anything. So now what we're saying now, since what we're saying now, since a lot of these people are getting pissed off and upset on both sides, we're holding their feet to the fire and saying we want this done. We want this money to be able to follow our children, because if I don't feel that my child is safe in this school or my child is being indoctrinated in this school, then I should be able to pull my kid, take that funding, and put my child over where I see fit, and then make these people compete, because we already know competition makes people better. Now there's a monopoly of the educational system, and they feel that they can dominate and take over. And even to the point where one parent wanted to pick up their child from school, and it goes right back to this masking and authority issue, and they said, we will not release your child to you until you put a mask on. Now, this is her daughter. This is the overreach of the school system saying, we will not release your kid. And she lost it. She was like, you know something.
So you go get a mask off the floor of your car. It's been under your shoes for 2 weeks.
I mean, that's your kid.
Because it's for your health.
It's for their health to breathe in.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the overreach of the government and the overreach of the educational system, the overreach of what's going on, period. When you done pissed off enough people, now you're going to start initiating change. And I tell anybody, hold these candidates' feet to the fire. Hold your public officials' feet to the fire. Hold these people who are already in office. Hold their feet to the fire. Ask them, where the hell have you been? What have you been doing? All you doing is talking. I don't see any policy. I don't see any action. I don't see any movement. But yet you in my face asking for money and votes.
Well, I got myself in trouble the other day. I went to a K-12 forum where we were talking with the people writing the laws in Georgia. They had a CRT bill and a parents' rights bill. And I got myself in trouble because I asked apparently too many questions. But the questions were, the questions were simple. It's, hey, this wording, if it's not in there, the bill doesn't do anything. Well, we're not trying to be punitive. Well, what are you trying to be? Are you, I mean, are we just trying to, is this just a media circus then? We're not really trying to stop the problem. I understand. Or just say we're trying to make a first step and we'll add to it later. But
well, my question is, why would you not want to be punitive towards someone who's breaking the law?
Yes.
Aren't we supposed to be punitive when people break the law?
These obscenity laws.
Yeah, I was like, if you say punitive one more time, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah,
like you're talking about
then,
teachers who have been told you are not allowed to indoctrinate our children.
But they do it anyway.
Punitive should be what you run into if you do that.
Right.
That should be what happens. So the law needs to be tweaked.
One of the bills was the school has to respond to you in 3 days if you ask for curriculum.
Which is
and if they don't, they've got 30 days. But then if they don't, you can go to the school board. But then if the school board doesn't, you go to the state school board.
Yes.
And if the state school board doesn't,
the burden is where? On the parent. Again, you're the customer.
That's not right.
Bureaucracy.
You're the customer. You're the customer. You're the customer.
To bury you in paperwork. And that's just not effective. And this whole concept, and one of the things that really angers people is I am very pro-religious education. I think you need, my children, I want them to have a Christian education. And people think that the government shouldn't be spending any money on a Christian education because it's religious and the separation of church and state, which don't even get me started on the origins of that.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the origins and the nonsense that's blown into.
Yeah.
But all schools are religious schools. Public schools are religious schools. They are teaching a religion of the humanism and atheism. They're absolutely religious schools. Just because I want to teach a different religion that the country was founded on,
I was going to say.
all of a sudden the government's not supportive of that boggles my mind.
And the crazy thing is, a few weeks ago, I was at the state capitol. We was talking about this, with parental authority and parent authority. And we had teachers up there saying, we have the right to set our agenda and tell your kids what we want to do and teach them what we want to do. And parents just basically need to butt out. And then they have some teenagers coming up there saying, well, all these parents are paranoid and this, and they're just getting in the way of my education. And then I had to pull one of these young folks aside once we got out. I said, young man, let me tell you something. Once you become a parent, your whole worldview will change. Right. Okay, you will want the fact that your parents are paranoid, wanting to know what is being taught to you in schools. And no teacher, no no principal, no superintendent ever has a right to tell your mom or your dad they are not allowed in the classroom. It's none of their business what they're teaching you, or to teach you things and tell you it's a secret. Don't tell your mom and dad we're doing this.
Right.
This is wrong. And so I had to lay into some folks on the outside. They ain't like it, but what the hell are they going to say to me?
Yep.
Nothing. Okay.
Yeah. Parents not allowed in the schools. That was the end for us.
For real, you know, so we gotta really look at that and take our power back. And this is what I was explaining at the state capitol, and folks started to get it. And then when the young man was talking to me, I said, let me tell you something. Do you have a little brother? He said, yeah, I do. I said, when you see your little brother getting in trouble, what do you do? He said, well, I go and try to help him. What if your little brother was to tell you, hey, big brother, stop being paranoid? What you gonna do? He said, I'm gonna take care of my little brother. Right. Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. That is what we're talking about. Right. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, how come they don't want parents around? I said, exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Get it?
Well, because a parent will defend their child.
That's right.
And the children are the target.
MAGA moms will, for sure.
MAGA moms will. MAGA moms will. The neat thing I want to go back to here, and I won't, because we'll all get super fired up since we're all Christians here, but the thing about having an education system that is based on and puts forward a Judeo-Christian foundation, the really neat thing about that is that in our Judeo-Christian foundation, we respect other people's opinions. And so
novel idea.
It's not exclusivity. It's actually the ultimate in inclusion. And it's like, okay, so we've got this foundation of justice and truth and rightness and wholeness and these kind of things. And you can function, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but you obey the laws. Stealing's always going to be wrong. Murder's always going to be wrong. This is what we're always going to love others more than we love ourselves. Put them first. Consider, take the plank out of our own eye before we, Oh my gosh. And so we're going to do these things. You're safe here in a Judeo-Christian environment. People that really believe differently are actually safe.
Right.
When you take that away and you insert humanism, nobody's safe.
Now you're threatened.
So actually, if you really unpacked it, and rather than, again, just like little one-line snippets, you looked at, okay, what is Judeo-Christian value? What are those values? And how do they treat other people? Then the argument wouldn't even stand up, it wouldn't stand up. And so anyway, I just think that's so interesting that.
Right. Well, even in the Judeo-Christian founding, where they still got things wrong, it was still the principles that they wrote into the Constitution and the amendments that ultimately led to the right answer.
Yes.
The principles they wrote in, even though they didn't take the stands necessary on certain things when the country was founded, the principles still led to the right answer.
Yeah, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. It's all good.
Leads to the answer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Once again, I'm gonna break it down real basic. When I was talking to some folks about this, we was arguing about this outside at the state capitol. They're like, America was founded on this racism, and we hate this, and we don't like kids being taught this stuff. I said the reason why you have the freedom to say the things that you're saying right now is because of this Judeo-Christian foundation that we have. I said, how about this, man? I said, have you ever traveled outside of the country? I said, I've been to Africa. I've been in some places where there is no freedom. And he was a kid, and let's just say he was transgender. I said, now, if you was to go to these places, but no, that's what he said he was, okay? And I said, now, if you was to go to some of these places, they would kill you. But because of where you are right now, you are free to even criticize the president of the United States. You are free to come in here to the state capitol and say the things that you're saying. Right. You are literally operating in your privilege. Since you want to talk about privilege so much, you are literally operating in privilege, young man, because if you was to go to Nigeria, where I've done some security work, and you walk around and you start talking, they will kill you and your body will be on the side of the street for at least 4 days and people will walk over you. This is the reality of the beauty. Not saying that America is perfect. It's not. But if you was to look at everything around you, and honestly see the freedom and the privilege that you have right now, where you can go up and speak to people who are in command and leadership, to politicians, and speak your opinion. You're living in the greatest country on God's green earth.
That's right.
And matter of fact, you're talking to a black man who has seen some things in his life. I know what racism looks like. I know what hatred and bigotry look like. I done seen a whole hell of a lot of it. But the stuff you talking about, you are talking from a privileged position where if you were to travel just a little bit, you won't even make it back home.
Right.
And seeing
well,
that's
if you
the
even
reality.
if you went to the country that your TikTok app that you love so much to talk about Trump, if you went to that country,
you wouldn't even
disappear.
be
talked about China's president the same way.
Yeah,
good luck.
You're gone.
No, you're gone.
Good luck.
You're gone. I mean, you'll be in the camp with the Uyghurs. You'll be over there with them, and you'll be censored. As a matter of fact, your parents won't even be able to know where you are because they censor the internet so heavy over there. You just disappear. You won't ever exist again.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of the situation. So people need to really understand the beauty of our country, of where we are right now. And so, like you said, Mallory, I give people pushback. When they start lobbing that stuff over, I knock it right back.
Yeah.
Because what you gonna say to me? You know, put it this way, real funny. When we was talking about pro-life, it was some white women in Black Lives Matter shirts, right?
Sure.
We're out there saying, hey, YG, you're a sexist, you're a pig because you're all pro-life, this, that, and you don't need to be talking all these good things about being pro-life and your kids were killed. Yeah, we understand that. They were just a clump of cells. Black Lives Matter. And I said, young ladies, you realize you're talking to a 48-year-old black man. My youngest child is older than y'all, and you're telling a black man not to sit here and fight for the lives of his black children, but you're going to talk about some freaking Black Lives Matter? Right. Are you out of your freaking mind? How privileged are you? How racist are you to tell me, a black man, that I cannot speak for the love of my country, for the love of my children, for the love of my family, for the love of my district, and for the love of my state? And I'm not a real black person because I didn't vote for Joe Biden, who put black men in jail and pushed Planned Parenthood to kill half my population. How freaking racist are you?
Right. Well, as soon as Black Lives Matter became a
but see, they left though. They got quiet, and they got quiet. They were like, "Oh no, YG, we're not racist." I said, "Yes, you are. If you're gonna put that on me, I'm gonna put it right back on you." And then they left, and then we ain't hear nothing else from them. But we gotta flip this stuff. We gotta take the narrative back. We gotta snatch that narrative and tear it up, man, because it's a bunch of lies. That's what we got to do with it.
As soon as it became an organization where people at the top were making millions and they were donating to parties, it lost any credibility as a social movement. Any influence that it could have had for good was all gone at that point. Mm-hmm. It was all lost. So we're gonna wrap up here. I want to cover one last thing.
Woo, this is good.
I know this has been awesome. One last topic, and we're gonna keep it brief. And I'm gonna let Mallory go first. HR1. HR1 is horrifying to me. Yeah. We've seen enough things wrong with the election once we start having people meddle and influence, and Republicans making bad deals, especially here in Georgia, and the things that can go wrong. How do we stop even the idea that the federal government should even be anywhere involved in our election internally in the state system?
You stop it by electing people like us.
Right.
It will be the end of our country as we know it if they federalize our elections process. End of story. I mean, when you're talking about states having to fly to D.C. and answer to the federal government for what they do, it is absolutely unconstitutional. Yeah, it is completely unconstitutional.
So clearly laid out.
You are in a police state at that point. You have no freedom. I mean, that is what distinguishes America from most other countries is our electoral process, that we actually send and choose our own representatives, the Senate and the House. Right. I mean, it's just a phenomenal structure, absolutely brilliant. I believe inspired and designed by God through our founding fathers. So were HR1 to pass, I can't fathom how quickly and how, talk about fundamental transformation.
Right.
We're done. And the number one issue really in the country, certainly in the state, and I've seen the data from state by state by state, and I talk to people all over the country, their number one concern is election integrity because people are smart. Right. They treat us like we're idiots, but people are smart. And every other freedom we have falls behind elections. Our ability to elect the people who govern us.
Fair and free elections.
Serve us. I'd like to use that word. So it is paramount that under no circumstances do HR1 or HR4 ever pass. And so it's everything to me. It's everything. And you have to, again, that firewall, that is exactly my position. That's the kind of stuff that will never see the light of day as far as my vote is concerned, and I will caucus and do everything I can. I will lay it down to be sure that our election process is never federalized in any shade.
And what scares me, because I'm with you, I think this changes the country.
It does.
I think it's a fundamental change. And I would like to say, if it happened, that people would rise up. We would see a revolt. We'd see people not willing to stand for that. But 2 years ago, I would have said, no government is closing my church.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you try, there will be a revolution. People will rise up. And they did, and it didn't happen. The revolution never came.
That's right.
There are churches that still haven't opened back up in this country.
Well, complacency is a killer. Arrogance is a killer, to think it could never happen here. It could never happen to us. I mean, our previous leadership said it has to be protected. Freedom has to be protected. And we have to protect it with our lives. But I spoke the other night somewhere, and they only gave me 30 seconds to speak. So I very quickly stood up and said, I will fight, remember freedom. And I will fight for your freedom to worship, to assemble, to vote, to think at this point, to speak, to build, to dream, to create, to have all those things have been attacked here in the United States in 2020, 21, 22. I'm with you. It's jaw-dropping. It is jaw-dropping.
On the federal level, to me, H.R. 1 is the number one scary thing going on.
It is. Well, I agree.
Yeah. And let me tell you also, like I said, I always break it down real simple. You got to have leaders who are brave and not afraid of these people. Okay, I was actually in Maricopa County, for the audit. I was there. I brought evidence back that, these ballots went from Maricopa County, Arizona, landed in Fulton County. I took that evidence to the FBI. Now, I got plenty of calls from GOP here and around the country saying, YG, what the hell are you doing? I said, I'm looking for the truth. I'm fighting against these machines. I'm doing your damn job. That's what I'm doing. And I will tell you this, when you start to say and do the right thing, you're going to get pushback. And this is how we have to fight these people. You cannot be afraid to deal with this. Because I'm saying the quiet part out loud. I'm telling you what goes on behind the wall of politics. We can sit there and we can talk all this stuff, but you have got to be willing to do the work. And you got to be also willing, if you got to make a sacrifice, your job may be attacked, your business may be attacked, your reputation is going to be attacked. You may even lose your life on this. This is serious politics here.
Right.
We are talking about corruption of our country and saving our country. We got to have leaders who are willing to step up and say, to hell with all of this garbage. I will be your public servant. I will be your voice by hell or high water. And I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. If they wrong, they behind, need to go to jail, period.
Right.
And that is how we stop this. And when we have enough leaders doing this, the people will come behind us and demand that this is the standard that our public servants need to have. If you are in office to sit here and pad your resume or just climbing that ladder of success just to get to Washington, D.C. or have some glory position, then you are gone. You are to serve the people, period.
Yep.
And that is where we are right now. We need politicians with a pair. Excuse me, Mallory. But we need politicians with a pair. Mallory got
or a
more.
MAGA mom.
Yeah,
or
MAGA mom. Well,
mom.
Mallory got bigger ones than some of these other politicians we see out here. And I tell you this, but you got to be able to do the job, be able to do the work, not be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Tell them to pound sand, kick rocks. If you're guilty, you got to go. We coming after you, but we are standing for the people because we are one nation under God. Don't matter, black, white, Jew, Gentile. We coming. This is our country, and we are going to relay claim on it in 2022.
Amen.
Well, thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for
was
having
fantastic.
us.
We could easily go 2 more hours.
I know.
YG, can you tell everybody where they can find you, your social media, what website, how they can help you, what they can do to support?
Yeah, okay, just go to YG for Congress. Real easy, a Y and a G for Congress.com. I am the bodyguard of Georgia. I will take those shots for you. But guess what? All of us are armed. We ready to go. And I ain't just talking about guns. We are armed with the Spirit of the Lord, launching together. God is bringing all of his children together right now for this very special time. Let's go get them.
Mallory, where can they go find you?
I'd really rather have YG say it all. But anyway, it's a little bit of a staplesforcongress.com. MAGA Mom, join us, candidate of the people. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely,
Great.
guys. This was great. Thank you.
Yeah.